or epsilon pi epsilon. This is part of the UPE Make program where we focus on hardware development as well as 3D modeling and 3D printing. So to recap some of the workshops that we have for the rest of the semester, the next one is going to be the Raspberry Pi workshop. This is going to be on October the 15th at 6 p.m. And then we are potentially going to be doing some collaboration workshops with other organizations. So stay tuned for that. For those that are a part of the cohort program for Make, we are going to have another Raspberry Pi workshop on top of the one that we have here. This is just going to be a beginner workshop where we're going to be doing some really cool programming on LED strips. And essentially, we're going to try to recreate what a nano leaf is. And that's the idea that I had for using the 3D pen. But given that the 3D pen that you guys have, if you guys did order them, they don't come with a lot of plastic, even though the filament isn't too expensive. So that's still in the development. But yeah, the Raspberry Pi workshop is going to be October 15th at 6 p.m. And stay tuned for a few other workshops that we might be having with maybe SHEP or IEEE as well. If you haven't become a member, make sure to become a member at upfiu.io. And if you're not part of the Discord already, make sure to join the Discord so you could get access to all the resources that we have there. Our social medias, UP at FIU, sorry, at FIU, at SCIS, or at UPFIU with those hashtags. And today we're going to be doing the Fusion 360 workshop. So if you've always wanted to learn how to 3D model, the basics of Fusion 360, how to use the user interface and things like that, you're in the right place. But for starters, what is Fusion 360 capable of? You can create conceptual designs with sculpting. You could also make parametric designs and mechanical drawings. You can make some really cool renders, as well as you could use it as a CAM software. So CAM is basically whenever you have some metal structure and you have to mill it to create something out of it. That's what CAM is, and that's what you could do with Fusion 360 as well. As well as with simulations. So if you've ever wanted to create something and see how structurally found it is, you could use Fusion to see if maybe there's certain areas within that object that are not as strong as others. But what we'll be learning today is the basics of Fusion 360. We're going to learn how to navigate the software. We're going to get some experience with creating conceptual designs. And if we have time, we'll try to see if we could make an animation out of it, so that you can see how you could create these animations, whether it is a prototype that you're trying to show a company or a startup or things like that. And as well, if you've ever wanted to learn how to export it to your 3D modeling software, you'll be able to learn that as well. That's not too hard. It's basically just pressing a few buttons. But since some of you might not have used Fusion before, we're going to be going over it. Again, if you haven't downloaded it, Fusion 360, make sure to create your student account and download it if you want to participate in the workshop today. If you don't, or if you haven't, go ahead and do that. And we're going to be doing different sketches throughout the workshop. So you might be able to maybe not complete one if you don't have time, but the others you'll be able to follow along. But yeah, let's get a little bit familiar with the Fusion 360 in terms of the user interface. So here on the top, you have the data panel, which is stuff like the file, saving, undoing, and redoing. I'm going to tell you right now, the undo shortcut is going to be very, very helpful for you whenever you're 3D modeling. So if you have obviously you have a Control V button, but get familiar with using that shortcut there because it is going to be helpful. Also, you have the toolbar where you get all the features and the functions that Fusion 360 gives you in terms of extruding, filleting, chamfering, and sketching and stuff like that. You have your profile and your help. The good thing about Fusion 360 is that it's cloud-based in that all the models that you ever create are always going to be stored in the cloud within the Fusion 360 application. So if you were to maybe get another computer and log into Fusion, all your models will still be there because it's connecting through the cloud basically. You also have the view cube. So that's going to be very helpful whenever you're trying to look at different perspectives of the model that you're creating. You have the browser so that you could see the different parts of the 3D model that you've created, whether that's the sketch or different components or different bodies within that model. And then the timeline, which is on the bottom, is basically tells you the process of which you're doing throughout the sketch or the model. So whenever you create a sketch or make a hole in a model or whatever it may be, that's there, and then you could always refer back to one of those steps if you need to for whatever reason. You also have the navigation and display setting, which also gives you some functionality in terms of how to look at the model differently and get a different perspective there. But for the navigation controls, they're pretty straightforward. So you have the scroll wheel, which allows you to zoom in and out of what you're looking at. And then if you want to use the navigation, you can click and hold on your middle mouse button, and that's going to allow you to pan through the view. And then if you shift key and then click on the middle mouse button, then you could orbit around it, so you could look at the different angles. And then as well as that, you have a shortcut right here on the right side. You could see you have the right click. If you hold down your right click, and then you can choose whatever it is that you may need, whether that's a sketch or if you want to create a circle from a sketch, then you would hold your right click, go down to sketch, and then go to circle, basically. If you are using a mouse trackpad or a Mac trackpad, you could follow these instructions in terms of the navigation, but it definitely may be a little bit difficult for you to follow along with a mouse trackpad. But yeah, let's start with working with the Fusion. And then these are the different sketches that we're going to make, and ultimately this is going to be the final sketch. As well as we're going to create a cylinder that could go through this little chamber right here, and we're going to see some really cool movement that we could get out of the models. So for the first sketch, I do realize that these pictures are not the best quality. I thought for whatever reason when I was creating the workshop that they were good. I am going to be sharing this document with you, the PowerPoint with you, so I will fix these pictures so that you could follow along through the PowerPoint if you, for whatever reason, want to refer back to it. So let's go ahead and open up Fusion 360, and we're going to open up our first sketch. What we are going to do first before we do start on the sketch is play around with Fusion 360, get a little bit comfortable with the different tools that we have, and as well as the navigation, so you could get a sense of how it works. So just so that we could have something, we're going to, let me go back. Let's go ahead and create a sketch. We're going to click on any of the planes. These planes basically give you your canvas in which where you're going to create the model and the sketch. So from here, let's go ahead and create a line and just put it anywhere. It doesn't really matter at this point. But this one, we're going to keep it straight because I do want to talk to you a little bit about the constraints. And then a cool feature with the line feature is that if you click on it and hold, it will create an arc. So this arc you could put wherever. We're just going to go ahead and hold it and put it back to the point that we started off with. So before we go on any further, let's go ahead and review some of the navigation so that you guys know what you're doing. So if you right now hold your shift button and then your mouse button, you'll be able to orbit around the sketch. It looks a little bit disorientating because it isn't a 3D model, but just so that you guys could see the different functions as well. If you just hold the mouse button, you could pan and move the plane in which you're working with. Zoom in, zoom out, basically, and then you have the view cube. Does the same thing, basically. So if you're not comfortable with using that mouse button, you could always refer back to the view cube. Okay, so now we've created this arc, right? As you can see here, we have different constraints. So this icon right here that you see is a tangent constraint. Basically says that this arc right here is going to be connected to this line and is not going to be able to move from there. Equally as well, this icon right here is a horizontal constraint, basically saying that the line is horizontal. And then as you can see on the top bar, toolbar, you have your creates, which is what allows you to create different shapes and different lines for the model that you're trying to create. So this is what we're going to use to create this model right here on the left. You also have your modify if you want to maybe make a fillet. So in this case, if you want to make a fillet of these two lines and create a curve, you would click on these two and they'll create that curve for you. You could go ahead and click on that arrow and then it will show you the different measurements of that fillet that you can create there. You also have your trim if you want to cut some of these lines off or erase them. And you have your offset if you want to copy what you've selected, but maybe change something within it, maybe make the arc a little bit smaller, but still keep this one already here. For your constraints, you have your horizontal and vertical, like I said here, your horizontal constraint. You have your coincident, which is wherever you have a point, you can make that point be fixed to a line or another point within your sketch. You have equal if you want to have two lines equal, so we'll go ahead and showcase that here. So first, go ahead and click anywhere on the canvas and make a line. And then whenever you make a line and you want that line to be done or like end, you could go ahead and click on that green button, or you could click on the escape button on your keyboard. But from there, let's say we want to create a tangent within that with that line and this curve right here. So you would click on tangent, click on the line, and then click on the curve or on the arc, and they'll create that tangent for you. So from there on, you can't move this line anywhere. Now, if you want to create another line, let's click on that point right there and just go to the right all the way. And we could obviously see that these lines are not the same distance. So if you would want to make them the same distance, then you click on the equal button and then click on the one that you want to copy over in terms of the distance. In this case, we're going to use this one. We're going to copy it to this one. And as you can see now, they're the same distance. What I would say before I continue on, if you guys have any questions at all, or if I'm going a little bit too quickly, please let me know. I'm still learning in terms of presenting, and it's definitely a new experience in terms of being virtual instead of in person. So I'm open to criticism always. So thank you about that. But now that we've reviewed a little bit about how to use navigation and some of the different tools that we have access to with Fusion, let's go ahead and start with the first model. So what you're gonna do is go here to the top. You could just go ahead and click on New Design, and then from there we're gonna have a clean slate, and we're gonna go ahead and start with a sketch. So for your sketch, I usually just use the same one. It doesn't really matter. The orientation is the same most of the time. So now that we have the plane that we've chosen, one other thing to mention is that we're going to be using millimeters as the units of measurement throughout this workshop. So if you click on document settings and it says inches, which I believe it does by default, go ahead and change active units and click on millimeters and set that to your default so that every time we create a new design, it's already going to be at millimeters and not inches. Okay. So it's pretty simple. To start off, you're just going to use the line tool and we're going to create the general shape of what we're trying to create here. So we're going to go there. We're going to create that line. We're going to create the right line. And again, we're going to just create general shape. Measurements at this point don't matter. We'll go back and fix that after. So now that we have the general shape, something to mention and to let you guys know is that sometimes whenever you're dealing with the dimensions, it's better to start off from where you began the lines, because there are some times when you are trying to change the dimension of, example, this line right here, and they'll go out and then they won't connect to the initial one anymore. So the tool that we're going to be using to create those dimensions with each sketch that we create is the sketch dimension. You could use the shortcut of the D button on your keyboard, which is very helpful since we're going to be using a lot this workshop. So to practice, if you want, just go ahead and click on your D button. and then it should select the sketch dimension. So on the bottom, we have 30 plus 20 plus 25, that's 75. So we're gonna go ahead, it's already 75 because I got lucky, but if it's not for you, then make sure to put that 75. And then press enter, and then we're gonna do the right side as well. The right side is 65. And then this side, 25. It looks like I'm getting lucky with these, but 25 there. This is gonna be 20. And then this is gonna be 30. If it's 30 already, then you're good. And then we're gonna do the left sides. So this is gonna be 30. And this is gonna be 15. And then this is gonna be 20. Perfect. So now we created the sketch. Now what can we do with this? So one of the tools that you use a lot whenever it comes to 3D modeling is the extrude method or the function. This basically allows you to create the objects that you want to create. So by clicking on that and clicking on the sketch or the face, you'll receive this menu that shows you the profile, where you're going to start from, the direction in which you're going to go, and the distance. In this case, we're creating something, so it's going to be one-sided, and it's going to be the distance that we choose it to be. We could go ahead and put it to 50 right now, just so that we could show you how that works. Before I continue though, let me go over the operations of the extrude. So with extrude, you get a few operations. The join, which basically means that whenever you're creating a new object from a sketch on top of an object that already exists, you're going to be merging those two objects together. And those are usually called bodies, but they can also be components. So as you can see here, we also have bodies and components. Before I get to those, let me go ahead and explain to you cut. So what cut does, it basically creates a hole in the model that you're creating, and intersect, if you have an intersection between two models, then it's going to either create that intersection or remove it. But for now, we're going to just go ahead and click on new body. What this is going to do is create a new body or an object that it has its own plane. And that's the difference between bodies and components. Components are, each component has its own plane, bodies share a plane. So whenever you're trying to create objects or a model that has different parts that move, most of the time you're going to want to use a component, because that allows you, because each object has its own plane, you could, it's a little bit confusing. Once we get to the workshop or to the different sketches, you'll understand a little bit more of what I'm talking about. But now that we have this, let's just go ahead and create another sketch so that we could get a better idea of how that extrude works. We're going to click on the centered diameter circle. Click anywhere on that plane of that object that we created. And then we're going to finish the sketch. We're going to create another extrude. And then where we created that sketch, we're going to show you these different operations. So if I create a body, it's going to, on my left hierarchy, if I click on the bodies folder, it's going to show me those two bodies. So they're not really connected completely. They would be connected if I were to use the join operation. So now if I were to click on the join operation, there would indeed be only one body, and I wouldn't be able to do or separate these two objects. And then the other thing, other than that, is the components. So for the component, like I said, they get their own plane. So this allows me to move this out of the way. But as you can see, I can't move this one. The reason I can't move this one is because this is a body. Bodies have a lot more structure to them, which could be a good thing and a bad thing depending on what you're trying to do here. So yeah. In this case, the model that we created is a stairs, basically. Maybe let's say you were creating a tech deck park, and then you needed some stairs for your skateboard. That would be a way to do that. All right, so that's the first sketch. Let's go ahead and click on new design. Let's go on to the second sketch. Second sketch is a little bit more complex. We're going to be creating a sort of star. And then we're going to be using the mirror functions And as well as we're going to be creating dimensions of angles so that you can get some practice with that. So the way that we're going to be creating the mirror, we're going to be creating the top left section of this model, and then we're going to be using the horizontal and vertical lines to then mirror those over. So starting off, we're going to use the line tool. We're going to click on the horizontal axis, and then we're just going to copy the general shape of that sketch. Make sure that you do not get these two blue lines under these two lines as well, because then that's going to create a constraint that we're not going to want, because then we're not going to be able to give it the angle that we want it to have. So just make sure it goes a little bit up, and then you could go ahead and click on the green button there. And then now we're going to use the sorry, the construction tool. And then we're going to use that with the line tool. And what this is doing is it creates a line within the plane that allows us to then use those for our advantage. In this case, we're going to be using it for a mirror, but you could also use these so that you could have your models be a lot more centered. And you'll see what I mean once we go further in the workshop. But now that we have this general shape, we're going to go ahead and click on Z again, or sketch dimension, and we're going to give this angle right here an angle of 30. The reason we give it an angle of 30 is because, as you can see here, there's an angle of 60. Since we're taking half of that, obviously it's going to be 30. But as you could see, this line kind of moved from the horizontal axis, and we want to keep that there. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys in the chat so I could get a little bit of interaction from you guys. Maybe you guys have used it before, maybe you haven't. But what function or what feature would I use in this case so that I could get this point back on this horizontal axis?
The coincide?
Correct. Yeah.
You have to put the line on a point.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to click on that coincide. We're going to click on the point that we're trying to get on the horizontal axis and then move it there. But now it looks.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry. How did you make that constraint line again? Because I clicked the the construction line, because I clicked the construction line, but I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not able to make it.
Yeah. So the annoying thing about Fusion 360 is that whenever you use this construction line option, it always keeps that clicked. So you have to remember to click it back off if you're continuing to make more lines of your sketch. So let me go back really quick. So initially you create the general. Oh wait, so right now it's in construction line, right? I want to turn that off, click on line and create the sketch that I'm trying to create. Okay, so now that I have that, we click on construction, we create another line, and then we create those horizontal and vertical lines that we're going to reference when we make the mirror. Did you get it?
Yeah, I got it. I didn't know you had to hit the line tool again. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so again, I'm going to give this and this an angle of 30. It's going to move this away, so we're going to use coincide. Put that there. So now it moves my horizontal axis to the point, but I want to keep this line on the horizontal axis. So let's see if maybe some of you know how I would go about doing that. Yeah, it's not. So then what tool can we use again to put that construction line back on the axis?
Coincide again?
Constraint?
It would be coincide again, yeah. So then for the coincide, we would just click on the line and then put it back on this point that is the axis. And then
how did you get that angle again? I'm sorry, the 30 degrees.
Yeah, no worries. Click on sketch dimension, and we're gonna click on the line that we're trying to get the angle with, and the axis. So
Awesome.
we're gonna
Okay,
click. Yeah, no worries. So from there, now we have. We're gonna go ahead and give these two angles, sorry, these two sides, the length that they have here on the sketch, so which is 20 and 20. So we're going to give that a little length of 20, and this one also a length of 20. Now we can't really give this an angle, so we're also going to use that coincide to move this back over here. Again, it moves the construction line, so we're going to do the same thing that we did and move it to the axis. Now that we have it where we want it, we'll give that those two lines that angle of 30. Did it give it? Yeah, it did. Okay, perfect. So now we got 1/4 of the design. So now we're gonna go ahead and use the mirror tool to mirror that over to all the sides that we need it to go. So we're gonna click on the object that we're using. In this case, is these 4 lines, which are the objects, and then the mirror line is gonna be the one on the vertical axis. It's gonna mirror it over. We're gonna click OK, and then we're gonna do the same thing, but over the horizontal axis. Another cool feature that you have, if you want to click all of these objects at once, you could go ahead and click on your left mouse button and then just drag. Be careful because it may copy that vertical line as well, but you could always deselect that as well. Let's see if it works. Let's deselect that horizontal axis or the vertical axis. And then now that we have all our objects selected, let's choose the mirror line. And there we go. Perfect. So now we basically got the sketch that we wanted. Now what can we do with this? In reality, what is it called? What's that saying? Something is your imagination.
You're limited to your imagination.
Yeah, something like that. So basically, I'm thinking in this case, if we use the extrude like we did in the few sketches that we have already, we could probably maybe create a bracelet of some sort, right? So let's go ahead and extrude that. We'll give it some 20 millimeters. We'll create a new body because in this case, we're not using any other parts. And then we're gonna use a fillet. The fillet makes it so all the edges around the object that we're using are smooth. So instead of clicking on every single line, in which case, some cases you are gonna have to do that. In this case, we could just click on the face and they'll do that for us. And then we could use this arrow key to kind of see where we want it to be, or you could also give it the radius that you want. We're gonna go ahead and put a 7.5 millimeter on that. Click OK, and then we're gonna do the same to the other side. So we're gonna click the face after we click fillet, and then we're gonna give it a 7.5, and then click OK. So now we got pretty cool something. But if we're trying to make a bracelet, then we're gonna have to make a hole in the middle. And I would want to ask you guys which tool to use, but it's obviously gonna be the one that says hole. So you're gonna click on that hole feature. You're gonna click on the middle of the face, and we want to make sure that it is in the middle. So it should snap to the middle. So just make sure that it does go there, and then from there we could give it a little bit more dimension or diameter. But we don't want to go too off because then we're gonna start getting a few errors because of the unstructurally soundness of this design. So we'll just do 40 millimeters and we'll click OK, and they'll make that hole within that model. But we wouldn't want to put that on our wrist if it has those sharp edges. So we could again use the fillet, or we could also use the chamfer, which is similar to the fillet. It's only straighter edge. So we click on the 2 circles. Once we click on that chamfer, and then we can use the arrow as well as give it the distance that we want it to give. And let's look at it. It's good, but I still wouldn't want to put that on my wrist. So we could click OK, and then we could probably give that line in the middle a fillet. And now it looks like something that we could use. So like let's say if you're into cosplay and you need to make some sort of bracelet like this that your character uses, this is a way that you could do it. Cool. So that was the second sketch. Let's go ahead and start on the third sketch.
Hi, sorry. Was there a way that you could make the hole not to be a circle?
Yeah. you just wouldn't use the whole option. You would just create a sketch on top of the face of the object and create whatever shape it is that you want to make. So you would click on create sketch and you would click on the face that you want to make the shape that you want to make. And then depending on what shape that is, you would go here, maybe a rectangle or a circle. If you want to make a triangle, then you would use the line tools and make that triangle yourself. And then just finish sketch and then extrude that out. So once that's,
It would be the same thing if I wanted to like do the shape that we just did, right?
Oh, that shape?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think you could actually extrude that with that shape that you have there, yeah. So you wouldn't have to make a sketch. You could just click on extrude and click there. Yeah, and it would make it for you. So as long as you see edges wherever it is that your model is, you could do a lot of things with those shapes that are created already.
Cool, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so now for the next sketch, we're going to be creating a equilateral triangle with an in circle inside of it. So again, we're going to create a sketch, use the same plane that we've been using or any other plane. And we're going to use the line tool to create that triangle. So we could start at the middle and then go to the right. Go and make sure that it meets to the middle and then connect back to the first point. So for this, since we want to create an equilateral triangle, we want to have the angles in between two of them at least to be 60 degrees, because that's what creates equilateral. So we're going to click on the D, the sketch dimension, which is shortcut D. We're going to click on the two lines that we want to create an angle from, give them 60. And now we want to make sure that the distance of this triangle is 60 as well. So we're going to make it a little bit bigger. So from there, now that we have all the lines blacked out, means that we have a structured shape. We're going to go ahead and make those circles that we have here. As you can see, they say R10, R10, R15. Those are the radiuses. But the way that Fusion works, we give it the diameter. So in this case, for the bottom left, we're going to go ahead and give it 20. And another thing that you could do, we'll do it with this example here on the top. You could also use the dimension tool to, if, for example, you were to give it a wrong dimension or diameter that you don't want it to have, you do the same. You click on that D button, and then you give it that angle that you want. In this case, we're going to give it a 20 again. And then the bottom right, same thing. In this case, is going to be 30. Okay. So another question for you guys. We have to have this in circle inside the triangle, and we want it to be touching every point of that triangle. So what tool within, I'm not going to show it up so I could have you guys look at it inside your own Fusion. What tool or what create function would we use to have that in the middle?
What was the question?
You use a tangential, right?
You could, but it's also depends on the size of the circle, right? So you want to use some tool that creates a circle that makes it so that you're touching these 3 points. If you look at the circles that are available, which one would it be? No idea? Okay.
Would it be the like the conjoined one?
So we want
tangent?
yeah, I think that the 3 tangent would work. Also the 3 point would work. Let's try with the 3 tangent. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you got it right. So now that we have that sketch complete, let's go ahead and see what we could create with this. Oh, I forgot something. So once we have this created, as you can see, there's lines here that we don't want, because if we have those lines there, then it is gonna make it a little bit more difficult to create that extrusion. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the trim tool. Also, you could use the T key on your keyboard for the trim tool. And then we're gonna trim all the edges that we don't want to be once we extrude this sketch. So we're gonna keep the circle in the middle, but we're gonna take away all the lines that connect the circles on the outside. And reason we want to do this, now we could finish sketch once you remove those edges, is so that we could create an extrusion that doesn't include this middle circle, but includes everything else. And then we'll click on each one that we want to extrude together, and then we can create that shape or object. In this case, you could put 15, 20. I would say 15, because what I see here is a fidget spinner. The only thing wrong with this fidget spinner is that the walls are a little bit too short. There's not a lot of structure in there. But you would do the same. You would do something similar with the circle function. You would just make that circle a little bit shorter so that you have a little bit more structure within each side of the triangle. And I don't know if they have it, but I would say check if you're interested. There's this really cool tool that's called McMaster-Carr. It basically allows you to have access to all these different nuts and screws, because in some cases when you are making different models, you don't want to create this stuff if this stuff is already created. It's just wasting your time if you need to make it yourself. I don't know if they have bearings in here. If they do, then you would, yeah. So you could go to McMaster. So if you would be interested in doing something like this, you go to insert McMaster-Carr component, search bearing, or in any case, you might want to search screws or nuts if you're trying to create something like that.
Where would you go to get that again?
Insert, and then insert McMaster-Carr component. And then it shows you here different things that you have access to that you could import directly into Fusion 360. In this case, we would use a bearing. I don't know how well this would work because of the size. I think we could get it to work. But yeah, just go to bearings, click on open. Some of these don't have models, some of them do. I don't see any models for this one. But to show you what I mean in terms of importing these different objects, you could click on screws, socket head screw, alloy steel. And then we'll click on the size that we want. So in this case, it doesn't really matter. I'm just showing you guys how you could import this. And then once you go to the product itself, we would go down. Let me see if I could make this bigger. And then you would click on save. But first, I've heard from multiple people to always use 3D SAT, which I believe is the format in which it's getting imported into the model. And we have it here. Then we could scale it if we would like to with the modify scale. And equally, you would be able to do that with a bearing, but you would have to find what bearing is accessible through that import. Awesome. So that was sketch 3. Hope you guys are following along. If you guys need anything, hi, I got here late because yeah, no worries. Oh, sorry, that was private. No worries. Just so the way that we're doing this is we're doing it through sketches. So right now we're in the 4th sketch. So we have we have 3 more sketches and then we have the final sketch. So just try to follow along, and I'll kind of talk a little bit more in detail so that you could see what you're doing. If you don't have Fusion 360, make sure to download it, okay?
Quick question. You said it was going to be posted in this recording is going to be posted in the UPE YouTube channel?
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
All right, no worries. All right, so sketch 4. For a second, I thought that the participant said 72. I'm like, what? Okay, so this is the fourth sketch. So the way that we're gonna go about this, we're gonna create a sketch as well. And then from here, what we're going to do, we're gonna have to first make those construction lines. So you can see them in the sketch, those dotted lines. We're gonna create that. And the reason we wanna create that is because we wanna keep that measurement there so that we know where to put our circles. So we're gonna click on the construction button, click on line, and then make some lines anywhere on the canvas. From there, we're also gonna create a line going through the middle. Click OK, or click create and continue. And now we have our lines. So we want to make sure that the distance between these two horizontal lines are 80, or sorry, 90. So we have those there. And then what we can do is create those circles at each intersection. And that's what I mean when I say that you could use these lines not only to mirror, but also to decide or make it a lot easier to put specific shapes that you want it to be there. So now the outer circle that we're going to put on the left intersection is a radius of 30. So that's going to be a diameter of 60. So it's going to be 60 millimeters. And then we're going to go ahead. Oh, this is a perfect error. So I could explain it to you. I forgot to click on this construction button again. So it made this circle a construction line, which I don't want because then I won't be able to extrude this. So I need to click on this and then click on that construction button here so that it creates a solid line for it. But once I deselect this again, it's going to still be selected. So make sure to turn it off once again so I can continue to create the circle where you need it to be. I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker. It's only it's been an hour, but I don't want to keep you guys here too long, especially since I want to go over the 3D pen stuff. So now we're going to give that a diameter of 40. And then we're going to go to the right side and create those circles as well. So the outer circle is a diameter of 40 as well. And then the inner circle is going to be a diameter of 20. Because as you can see, it says R10, R20, those are radiuses. Or radii, I don't know what you would call it, but. So now we're going to create lines that connect these two circles. So we could just click on the top right here and connect it here. What I would say is that when you are connecting these lines, make sure that the right side of it shows a tangent icon so that you know that it's getting that constraint. Obviously, you don't have that constraint here, but we'll be able to add that constraint later on if we need to. I might get an issue with this, but I know how to fix it. So again, click on anywhere on that circle, and then here, make sure that it goes to the tangent. So now we're gonna give these lines tangents with the circle as well. So we're gonna click on the line that we want and the tangent that we want. And as you can see, I got a failure here. And I believe the reason that happens is because since I put the point in which the line starts intersecting under the circle is not recognizing it as a circle that we can be tangent with. So if that happens to you, then what you have to do is click on it and then click on the delete key on your keyboard. So click on that and click on the delete key and it'll remove it. So in order to avoid that from happening, make sure to go a little bit over that middle part of the circle. And then again, put the tangent. Let's see if this works. There, yeah. So that was the issue. And it's probably gonna happen to this one as well. Oh no, it didn't. Okay, perfect. So the reason we want those tangents is so that it's a lot more structured whenever it comes to removing these lines that we don't want here. Because as you can see in the model, we remove them. So now that we want to remove these lines here, we're gonna use the trim button and then remove those lines from there and there. One other thing to mention, make sure you zoom in really close on the intersections, because since we have this line here that's separating this, it doesn't remove this line as well. And that's going to be an issue once we start to extrude this model. Similarly, on the bottom, it's going to have that line that we don't want there. And then let's check on this side as well. This side is good. And this side is good. Okay. So we got the model. Now what? We're basically done sketching it. So now we could extrude it. We're going to click on the extrude. We're going to click on the face that we want to extrude out. We're going to go ahead and give it, let's say 15. And we've created a 2-hole clip of some sort. But what else can we do with this, right? I think we could do a few more things with it. So let's go ahead and create another sketch on top of it. And I think there's 2 things that you could make with this. So we're going to click on the line tool. We're going to create a line that goes from the smaller circle and is going to go straight and is going to meet at the bigger circle. We're going to make another one on this side. And then what we could do with this is that since we've created these 2 lines that separate this part of the model, we'll be able to extrude that out or cut it out. So again, we're going to click on the extrude button and we're going to cut this out. So how we're going to do that, we're going to use on the operation and we're going to click cut. And then we have to tell it where to cut. So we could just use that arrow key to put it down and it's going to make that separation there. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think this is what they have behind the pictures that you're always trying to frame on the wall. So if for whatever reason, maybe you lost one on the picture, you could create this in your 3D modeling software and print it out with your printer or go somewhere.
Kind of like a chain on a door too.
Oh yeah, that too. Or so now let's go back and let's do Control V so that we go back to this view. We could also create the starting of what's known as, I think it's one of those clip locks. Oh wait, something happened here. So it's definitely gonna. One second. We're gonna click on line. Oh, I think I know what's happening here. I think it's receipt is getting that. No, actually, I don't know. So we do that. We click it there. Do that. Click it there. Let's see what happens. I think I can move this right here though. Oh. All right. Anyways, this will be fine. So we created this sketch as well. I'll be really quick about this because it isn't really big of a deal, but we also extrude this out. Seems to me like the beginning of one of those clips that open and close on one of these sides. You would only have to now create that mechanism in which you were able to open and close it. But you could essentially create that yourself, or you could, like develop something like this and then be able to create it if for whatever reason you want to. Cool. That's sketch 4. Let's go ahead and move on to sketch 5. And then we'll get sketch 6 and then final sketch. These are a little bit easier, so it won't be too long. A lot of the same processes are for a lot of these sketches, but I wanted to ensure that you guys get comfortable with a lot of the tools here. Because especially for me, whenever it comes to a lot of the workshops that I've gone to, a lot of the content that's shown it goes very quickly or very advanced. And I think in order for you guys to get a better understanding, having you guys practice through these sketches makes it a lot more coherent in terms of how to use the software. So initially we're going to create a rectangle, right? So we're going to create a rectangle of 30 by 6, was that 180? No, not 180, sorry. 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 120, right? I think so, whatever. So we create a rectangle at the center. Make sure to click on rectangle and then click on center rectangle. So we're going to click on that middle part. We're going to create 30. We're going to click on tab to go to the other parameter of the dimension. I'm going to give it 120. Oh, it's a 100. Sorry, I'm stupid. I'm not stupid, I'm smart, but so now we have those
I
dimensions.
like that.
You gotta keep reminding yourself, man. You can't.
Gotta keep morale high.
Yeah, exactly. So now that we have the rectangle, we need to make those construction lines so that we can make sure that the circles that we create are symmetric. So we're gonna click on the line feature, we're gonna click on construction, and we're just gonna create them right now anywhere on the left side, and then we're gonna create another one anywhere on the right side. Once we've created those, we use the dimension tool to move those construction lines where we want them to be. So in this case, we're going to give it 30 on the left side and 30 on the right side. So now we have the location where we want the circles. We're going to use the center circle and click on those intersections. Radius is 10, so diameter is going to be 20. Oh, and looks like I made another error, but we'll be able to fix that. Again, we're going to do it on the right side. But as you can see, these are construction lines, and we don't want that. So we're going to click on one, then click on shift and click on the other, and make sure that we deselect that construction toggle there. Once we do that, we basically got the sketch that we wanted. But now what can we do? So we're going to look at a new feature here, and that's going to be the loft. So we're going to finish sketch. We're going to go to construction, and we're going to create an offset plane. The reason we create an offset plane is because what a loft does, as you could read here, a loft creates a transitional space between two or more sketch profiles. This is one of the sketch profiles. Since we want to create another sketch profile, we can't use it on this same plane because there's not going to be any distance in between. So then we're going to go to the construct tab. We're going to click on offset plan or offset plane. And then we're going to click on the face that we're trying to offset. Once we do that, we can see that it created a plane for us. We're going to move that up a bit so that once we do create that sketch of another rectangle so that we can create that loft, it makes it so that we're able to create that transitional shape. So we created that offset. We moved it up a bit. Now we're going to create a sketch on top of that offset plane that we created. We're going to make another rectangle. We're going to create, it's going to be a center rectangle. And then we're just going to make it a little bit smaller than the outer rectangle that we have already there. So we'll make it 20 by 70 is fine. So now if I move an orbit, you'll see that there's two planes here that are separated from each other. And that's perfect for the loft. So now that our sketch is complete, we're going to click on finish sketch and we're going to create, and we're going to use the loft function. We're going to click on the two planes that we want to loft, and it's going to create that transitional space that we were talking about. Perfect. But now what? This is just like a block or a rectangular prism or something like that. And what happened to our circles? So whenever you create an object, for whatever reason, it makes your sketches go invisible. So how you could go about having those sketches come back, on the left side, click on the sketch folder and make sure that the eye icon is on so that you can see those. And then again, we'll just create an extrude and we'll click on both. And then you could either make a bushing, which that's what this looks like, a bushing for maybe a door or some part of a car. Or if we were to create a joint extrusion on both these, we created some sort of Lego block. So you could get a sense of, I guess, your imaginary, what's the word for it? Whatever your brain could think of, you could make it basically. So
How did you create that shape from the sketches again? You use extrude, I think.
The circles or the
like the way
Oh.
you join the two planes, like the
Okay.
sketches.
Yeah. So were you able to create the two planes?
Yeah. I got them both.
Okay. So then you go to create, and then you're gonna click on loft. And what loft does is it gets those two planars and creates the shape in between them. So you're gonna click on one. Once you click on that option, you're gonna click on one, and then you just click on the other one.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. All right, that was sketch 5. Again, like I said, you have your circles here. You extrude these, and you created what it is that you were trying to create. In this case, it would be a bushing. We have one more sketch, and then we have the final sketch, and then we will get into the 3D pen. It's gonna be a lot more chill once we get into the 3D pen aspect, because I'm gonna be showing you guys my camera and me trying to create things like this or things like this, and hopefully you guys will be able to do it along with me. So let's pull up the next sketch, sketch 6. Okay. Again, create the sketch plane that we're going to be working on. In this case, we're going to be using an ellipse. So we're going to go to create, we're going to click on ellipse. We're just going to click any 2 sides, and we'll fix this after. One thing I did wrong right there, I want it to be in the center. So for an ellipse, they're centered. So you start where it is that you want it to be. Now that we have an ellipse, we're gonna make those dimensions what we want it to be according to what we have in the image there on the left. So the right side is gonna be 80. Again, how I did that, you click on sketch dimensions and you click on the 2 points in which you want to get that length from, and then it's gonna change the shape accordingly. Oh, that's not right. Click, click, what's happening? There. And this is 120, perfect. So, okay. So for this, we're gonna create a construction line in the middle. The reason we're gonna do that is so that we could then give the circle that we're gonna put on the left, have it be 50 millimeters from the middle. So now that we have that construction line in the middle, we're gonna create another one on the left side, and then give it the dimension that we want, which in this case it would be 50. So we click on those 2 vertical lines, and then we're gonna make that 50. So now we have that location of that circle. So we go to that intersection and we create the circle of diameter 10. But now we want it on the other side. So we could use a mirror because we have a vertical line, construction line in the middle. Oh, and again, I made this circle a construction line, which is a very bad habit. So then you click on it and make sure to deselect that and deselect it again so that doesn't happen. But now that we create the mirror, we click on the object that we're going to mirror over, and then the mirror line that we're going to be using. And there we go. So now the only thing that's left is creating the center circles. We're going to use that center circle again. We're going to create a diameter of 60. And then we're going to create an inner circle within that. That's a diameter of 30. And we basically got our sketch, which wasn't too difficult. So now that we got the sketch, again, we'll go ahead and extrude. And then this is going to be a little bit different because we are extruding different faces depending on what it is that we're trying to make. In this case, we're going to go on the outer face. We're going to click that first, and we're going to extrude that up by about 15 millimeters. And again, the sketch disappeared. So we're going to go to the sketch folder, make sure we deselect that invisibility icon, and extrude again. Now we're going to do the outer circle, and we're going to extrude that a little bit higher than what we did for the first one, which was 15. So in this case, we'll do 20, or let's do 25. And we got our object. Now, with every object and sketch that we've been making, I've been referencing back to what it may be. For this, I would say that this is the the part of the door that you have where you have that metal part that comes out of it and locks the door basically. They're usually square, but I think some doors can come with this shape. And yeah, for the final design, we're going to create this sort of gimbal type of mechanism that has these two holes on the bottom where we could put a cylinder and then have it create some movement. And then maybe we'll get to the animation part as well. So for this, again, we're gonna create the plane. This is a little bit different because we're gonna be doing it within separate sketches. So initially we're gonna first create the rectangle, then we're gonna create a sketch of the circle. So we're gonna go to center rectangle. If you look at the sketch, it says 80 by 90, 120. Okay, so we finished that and we're going to extrude this. Now pay attention here. We're gonna extrude this by negative 15. Reason we do negative 15 is because since the plane is on this face, if we were to do positive 15, then the circle part of it would be a little bit off, or we would have to recalculate the dimensions that we're using. So that way we're sure that this is still the 0 part of the sketch. So we created that rectangle. We're gonna create a circle on top of that plane. So you click on the face and it'll make that base a sketching platform for you. And then we're gonna create that center circle with a diameter of the big one is 80. So that's gonna touch the ends of the rectangle. From there, we're gonna create another circle inside, and that's gonna be a diameter of 60. All right, so that's the sketch. And then, wait, did I do that right? No, I did not. Sorry. So first you create the outer circle. Once you create the outer circle, then you have to extrude this out. Realistically, you could have done it the other way that I was going to do it, but it might have been a little bit more confusing because of the amount of measurements that we have here. So for this, as you can see here, it's a 20 length. So we're gonna put the distance of this to 20, and we're gonna create a join. So that is going to stick to this body. And then again, we're gonna create another sketch on this face with a circle that's a little bit smaller. In this case, it's gonna be 60. We're gonna finish that sketch. Again, extrude this, but in this case, we're gonna be cutting it. So the distance in which we're gonna be cutting it is gonna be in the negative integer. So from this, we got 20 and we're cutting it by 15. So then again, we would do negative 15 and it would cut that amount. And we got what we were looking for. One other thing is the last circle in the middle. So again, the sketch with that face specifically, a smaller circle inside. That one's gonna be a diameter of 30. And then we're gonna extrude that as well. The difference with this one is that we're gonna be cutting it, but we could go ahead and use the extent, and we're gonna use all. So extent basically makes it so that you could either choose the distance that you want it to cut or join, or you could tell it to go through all of it or join all of it. To the object, that's a little bit different. I believe that the way that works is that if you have an object that's being intersected, then it will take that portion of it and then either cut it or add it to there. But in this case, we're gonna just use all. And then we're gonna cut that. And then only other thing that's left is the legs. And then we'll be able to use a mirror for that. So this is the first time that we're gonna use a mirror with the actual 3D object. It's basically the same, but there are a few features that you have to change. So in order to create that sort of leg that we want there, we're gonna create the sketch on the right side of the model. And then we're gonna create a 2-point rectangle. the whole time we've been using center. This time we're going to use the 2 point. And the reason we do that is because we're starting from the corners. We're not starting from any middle. And as you can see here, this distance right here is 50, but we're not taking into consideration these 15 millimeters on the side. Since we started at about 15 down, then we have to take this 50 and subtract it by 15. So the rectangle is going to go down a length of 35. Sorry. And then from there, we got the rectangle that we want. But now we have to create that circular sketch that we have there. So we could use the center diameter, click on the bottom middle of that rectangle, and make it touch all the way to the edge. And then we basically have that sort of shape that we want there. But we have these lines that we can't have there because the way that we would extrude this, it wouldn't include these lines here. It would only include those, as well as a rectangle line. We can't have that there. And only thing that's missing here is the small center circle. That's a diameter of 32. And we basically got that leg. We just need to extrude it now. And as you can see here, it's going to be extruded by a length of 20 in the negative direction, I believe. So then we click on where we want it to be extruded. We're going to click on negative 20. Oh, not negative 120. Negative 20. And we join it. Awesome. Only thing that's left now is to create that mirror. So similarly with the sketches, we're going to go to the create. We're going to go down to mirror. For pattern type, we're going to click on features. By default, I believe it goes to faces, but since we're using certain features of the body, we click on the features tab. If we were copying the entire body, then it would do this and multiply or mirror it over. But in this case, we just want this leg portion of it. So we click on that part of it. For the mirror plane, we're going to use the one that's across. And then for the compute option, make sure that it's identical. And there we go. So now that we have the model that we're trying to get, only thing that's left now is to create a cylinder that goes through these two holes so that we could show you how we can use the joint operation or the joint function and create some really cool movements with this model. So for that, we're going to click on create. We're going to go down to cylinder. We're going to click on this face since we are doing it according to this diameter, but it doesn't really matter as long as you make sure that the diameter that you place that cylinder is 32. And then in terms of the length for this cylinder, we're gonna want to make it a little bit big, so I'll do 150 so that we can show you how it moves from through this transition. But like you can see here, you might have to press Control V for this one. I forgot something. So let me tell you what I did wrong. So I forgot to make the cylinder a new component. So because I didn't make the cylinder a new component, it's stuck. I can't move it. It's a part of this body. Or it's its own body, but it has the same plane as this body. So then that means I can't move it. So in order for me to have access to move these two bodies, first, when I do create that cylinder, I need to make sure that I create it as a new component instead of a new body. And you'll see what I mean. So again, 150 millimeters, new component. And now it's going through it and I have the ability to move it. But I don't have the ability to move this one because this is still a body. And this is going to be an issue because then I'm not going to be able to show you the movement that we get from the joint operation. So we need to click on the body folder, click on the body that we have here, and then we're going to create a component from the body. So it's going to make it so that it has its own dynamic plane that isn't grounded, basically. So then now I can move this as well. From here, the only other thing that's left is creating that joint between these two models. So if I click on joint, it's going to come up with this pop-up. Just go ahead and click on capture position. And then from there, we want to put or let Fusion know where it is that we want that joint to be. So we're going to click on the middle of this cylinder part. And then we're going to go ahead and click on the middle of this object as well. And as you can see, we get that movement there, which is pretty cool. But that's not the only movement. We have a lot of movements depending on what it is that you're trying to do. In this case, we have a cylindrical object. And we have a slider, we have revolute, or we have cylindrical, which is the one that we're looking for. And yeah, that's basically it. The only other thing left would be to show you how to do an animation, but since I'll show you really quick. So for the animation, you have to click on here on design and then click on animation. And the way that the animation works is that it goes in keyframes. So you have to click on the keyframe that you want to have it be recorded. So I clicked on 10 keyframes. Whatever movement I do right now, it's going to be recorded. So I'm going to pan, or I'm going to orbit. So now that I orbited, it recorded that. But I also want these objects to move. So if I click on one of them, I might do this wrong because I've been having issues with this, but I believe if I click on this and then I click on the M button for move, the pivot is set. So it's recognizing this as a pivot. And then if yeah, you see what I mean? Yeah. Let me see if I can do it with this. Yeah. I've been having this issue. I don't know what okay. So now that I got it to move, basically that movement that I made, it would be recorded. And there we go. So it was recorded. But I also wanted to rotate. Yeah, actually, I'm not going to be able to show you guys this. I'm having too many issues. But basically, let me show you what I created from that little segment right there. So if I go back to here and I press play. What the hell? It's not doing anything. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Oh, there we go. So essentially you would be able to create that movement and also have this rotate, which would be really cool. I'll show you what I mean with another thing that I created. And then I'll also show you some stuff that I've done before, that I've modeled before. So what I mean by the video, this is the video that I'm talking about. It's a little bit heavy, but so this is something I created from this model. You create the motion. You could move all the components, and then once you have the camera move as well, and put it all back together, it's super sick. But yeah, I don't know for whatever. What happened?
Were you the same one that did the workshop for show hacks?
Yeah.
I remember this. Yeah, I remember this. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not working now, but that's basically the type of effect that you're gonna get out of it. And then for those that weren't at show hacks, this is one of the first workshops that they did for UPE Make back when I was a member, and this is what they created, which is pretty cool. Hopefully with some of the knowledge that you gain, you might be able to create this. What I would say, I think I mentioned it as well, for these question marks, you could basically make them mirror over all the sections with the patterns, circular pattern method. So then it would copy it all over, and then you would just have to joint it to the one object, and then there you would go. But also for Shellhacks 2019, I created this, which is pretty cool. I also printed it. You could probably look at my Instagram if you want to check that out. I did a time lapse as well, which is pretty cool. And then I'm also creating this for a friend of mine that he's a barber, and he has this company Pomade. Obviously, I didn't make these trees. These trees I got them rendered, as well as the scissors, but sort of an idea of what's the type of stuff that you could create with this. Okay.
Did you get them from that car? What is it? The car? Not.
No. I think I downloaded them off the internet. I forget where exactly, but I don't think they have scissors in McMaster-Carr. But you could check.
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah.
Are you able to like scan in like an environment or like an area so you can work off of? For example, like scanning like the dash of a car, and then you can use that to make a piece.
So I don't know how easy it would be or hard, but it is possible. So there's this camera, and as well as I think there's some applications that you could also look into for your phone that allows you to record objects in real life and then transfer them to the 3D modeling software that you're using. So it's definitely possible, but you would have to look more into the applications. And I think one of the things that we have in the space, obviously is not open, but we have this attachment for the iPad that allows you to create 3D models from images.
Okay, I was just wondering because they have LiDAR sensors on the new iPad, so I was wondering if I could utilize that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. I'm not super familiar, but I believe so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no worries. So that's basically, let me not cancel that just in case. Let me go back to the presentation. I will send you guys the sketch. But that was the workshop portion of the presentation. Now we're gonna talk a little bit about 3D pen and 3D printing. You guys don't have to be here if you don't want to. This is optional. This is an additional content for you guys. It's already been an hour and a half, so but if you guys want to stay and try to create some of these really cool prints, yeah, you're more than happy to. But we're gonna cover a little bit about what a 3D pen is, some of the filaments that are available, some of the 3D printers that are available, and the different types that there are. So starting off,
Unfortunately, I don't have a pen, so I'll be heading out here. But I really appreciate the workshop. It was really cool. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad, bro. I'm really happy about that, and no worries about it.
Yeah, me as well. I'm out. Thank you.
All right, no problem. I'll see you guys.
Have a good one, man. Take it easy.
Bye. Okay. So 3D pen printing is the process of building a 3D dimensional object from a pen that uses plastic or filament. Some of the different types of 3D printers there are. There's stereolithography. There's digital light processing. There's fuse deposition modeling, which is the one that I have behind me, which is the most common one with the nozzle and all that. But there's also a lot of other selective laser melting and beam melting and all that type of stuff. But to go a little bit more in depth into the ones that are more popular, the stereolithography technology, it basically uses an ultraviolet sensor to heat the liquid that you're trying to use to create that model. It's a lot more complicated than that, but basically, yeah, you heat the liquid so that it becomes a solid, but it's not like these where it's the nozzle and you're heating the plastic. It's a liquid that you're creating into a plastic instead of a plastic that you're creating to a liquid and back to a solid plastic. Sorry. And then the fuse deposition modeling, the way it works is that it builds up upon layers. So it goes from one layer to the second layer and it builds up from there. And it uses the heating and extruding of the filament to do this. There's a lot of filament. I'm only gonna name a few, but the most popular ones are ABS filament and PLA. ABS is a lot stronger, but the one that most people are familiar with are PLA. Again, these filaments are super cheap to get. You could get a roll like this for maybe 15 bucks. So if you're interested, look into it. Especially that's kind of why I wanted to do this 3D pen portion of it. 3D printers are pretty expensive. So the next best thing is having a 3D pen. And that's why we're gonna demo it a little bit and play around with it a little bit today. So let me go ahead and turn off my background so that you guys can see me better. And then we'll start this portion of it. Okay. So how does it work? If you have yours, perfect. If you don't, you could still follow along. It'll be pretty interesting. But basically you have the pen, the two buttons on the side are to extrude and retract. Also you have the button on the other side that's in some sense a potentiometer, which is the speed control of how fast the filament is coming out of the pen and going, or how fast or how slow it's coming out of the pen. So those are the three buttons to be aware of. There's also a little, if you got the one that I linked to you guys, there's also a little flap in the middle. Oh, I keep thinking that my camera's, there's also a little flap in the middle. That little potentiometer inside there is what's gonna allow you to change the temperature of the filament and the plastic that you're using. In this case, the one that came with your kit is ABS. So if you look inside the manual, it'll tell you in what direction to put that potentiometer.
I have a quick question. Does the 3D printer come with a pen?
It does not, no.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe there's kits like that online, but like the one that I have here is 40 bucks, and it's pretty inexpensive, but still good. There used to be a lot cheaper 3D pens, but after I forget what company, there's a company, the company that started 3D pens, they patented the mechanism that a lot of the cheaper ones used to use. So that's why there's a lot less inexpensive ones, but this is the most inexpensive but high quality pen that you could get. But yeah, so safety and tips: make sure not to touch the nozzle. If it's extremely hot, you could get burnt, as well as the plastic. And changing the height of the nozzle with your hand can change the result of your print. Other things to consider is the speed. So the speed in which you're having the filament go out and the speed in which you're writing or drawing the design that you have will affect the amount of plastic that you're gonna get at the end. There's also anchoring. So what anchoring does is that it allows you to, if your print is not sticking to wherever it is that you are creating it, by anchoring, which is pausing in between points in your design, it makes it so it will hold a lot easier. And also remember to keep let it cool. So obviously you're heating up the plastic, you have to give it a few seconds so that it cools. So make sure not to touch it whenever it is hot, because then you might mess up your design. Also, the direction of the pen matters, in which the way that you're writing it. So if you start to write over the filament that you're printing out or you're extruding out, you're not going to get a good print out of that. So ways to avoid that is by rotating the canvas that you're drawing on, as well as keeping your pen a lot higher so that you can have it extrude without falling or hitting all the other plastic that you're basically extruding. Okay, let's practice. So I'm going to change my cameras. Like I said, if you look at the chat, I sent you guys a Google Drive with a whole bunch of stencils. There's this really cool stencil there that is a what is it called? Terra Sphericon. It's a really cool thing that you could do. So this is the portion of the workshop